For the past decade and a half, folks living in Seattle, Washington, Vancouver, British Columbia, and dozens of smaller communities around Puget Sound, the Strait of Georgia, and the Strait of Juan de Fuca have come to know these waters as part of a larger inland waterway, the Salish Sea. The new name came out of a broad recognition that all these waters were part of an inland sea that functioned as a single interconnected ecosystem. The title, Salish Sea, honors the Coast Salish peoples that have lived around its shores since time immemorial. This new name, and the idea that the sea is a single interconnected ecology, has had a wonderful effect. It's built an identity for these shared waters, creating a sense of community and pride among those living around the shores of the extraordinary Salish Sea. So let's step back for a moment to consider, what is a sea? Much of the planet is covered by oceans, and seas are those parts of the world ocean that are partially surrounded by land. The North Sea, Mediterranean Sea, Red Sea, and Arabian Sea, they're all examples. On the other side of our planet is the vast Pacific Ocean. Perhaps one of the most extraordinary seas on the planet Earth is a small pocket of Pacific Ocean waters tucked into the western shore of North America, the Salish Sea. The sea straddles the international border between the United States and Canada, a boundary also shared by the state of Washington and the province of British Columbia. It stretches from the inlets and islands north of Campbell River, British Columbia, to Olympia, Washington in the south, and westwards to Neah Bay, Washington, where the Salish Sea meets the open Pacific Ocean. The sea has three great arms, and their long-standing names remain: Puget Sound in the south, the Strait of Georgia to the north, and the Strait of Juan de Fuca in the west, connecting the rest to the open Pacific. Together, these three arms make up the Salish Sea. So with that basic geography in hand, let's take a look at what makes the sea such a remarkable place. First of all, the Salish Sea is inseparable from the landscapes that surround it, and without doubt, the mountains that ring it are the sea's most iconic backdrops. The Coast Mountains north of Vancouver, the Cascade Range east of Puget Sound, and to the west, protecting the sea from Pacific storms, both the Olympic Mountains that rise above the Strait of Juan de Fuca and the Vancouver Island Ranges. These mountains, the cradle of the Salish Sea, are pushed skywards by the collision of tectonic plates deep beneath our feet. And our stunning volcanoes, the most iconic mountains of all, are a reminder of this gigantic subterranean collision, underway every day, all along the coast of the Pacific Northwest. And here's a really interesting connection. These mountains create another defining feature of the Salish Sea landscapes, a remarkable mixing of both wet and dry climates. Though the Salish Sea is part of the rainforest coast that stretches from Washington State to Alaska, the sea sits behind the wall of Vancouver Island and Olympic Peninsula mountains that strip moisture from storms off the Pacific, creating a rain shadow that makes for dry summer climates in many areas of the Salish Sea. And local conditions can change abruptly. In a short distance, you can move from a moss-dripping shoreline rainforest to an island so dry that cactus grow there. This great diversity of wet and dry shores supports a remarkable biodiversity of life around the Salish Sea. Truly extraordinary when compared with other coastal areas to the north and south. So far we've been talking about its landscapes, so now let's turn our attention to the waters of the Salish Sea. Vancouver Island and the Olympic Peninsula not only affect climate, but also protect the waters of the Salish Sea from the energy of the open Pacific. While the outer coast is constantly pounded by giant swell and big surf from far-off storms, the protected shores of the Salish Sea host an astonishing diversity of different types of sheltered shores, including quiet mud-bottom bays, river-mouth tidal marshes, and tidal flats filled with extraordinary life. However, these protected waters are only part of the diverse marine habitats of the Salish Sea. There are tidal rapids among the islands that create rich mixing zones overflowing with life. Exposed rocky shores are blanketed with tenacious life that can weather the battering. The deep offshore environments known only to scuba divers harbor secrets such as glass sponge reefs filled with ancient life. While at the shore, tide pools accessible to all reveal a miniature world of extraordinary and bizarre life. Everywhere you turn, there's something different. But here's the amazing thing. In spite of all this diversity, the Salish Sea is a single, interconnected marine ecosystem. The sea is almost completely surrounded by land, separating it from the open Pacific. Twice daily, it's flushed with a great flow of mixed seawater that comes in through the Strait of Juan de Fuca and a lesser flow near Campbell River from around the northern end of Vancouver Island. Blended with the seawater is a flood of fresh water flowing in from the mountains around it. Together, this mixing of tides and rivers connects all the waters together, along with the nutrients from both, to support the marine life of the entire sea, creating an interconnected ecosystem. So let's pause to consider the consequence of raincoast rivers pouring into the Salish Sea from all sides. The Salish Sea is an estuary, an enclosed part of the ocean where river water mixes with the sea. And the Salish Sea is the largest estuary on the west coast of North America. This flush of fresh water carries vast amounts of nutrients and sediment from the forest out to the sea. Each Salish Sea river has built its own broad delta of sand and mud at the shore, a floodplain with forests, freshwater and saltwater marshes, and tidal flats. And each river mouth creates its own estuary, where fresh and salt water mix. These river mouth estuaries are often called nurseries of the sea, because numerous animal species rely on estuaries for feeding, nesting, and breeding. Salmon, herring, and oysters, among others, complete at least part of their life cycles in estuaries. The giant Fraser River pours into the Salish Sea near Vancouver, British Columbia, and delivers 80% of all the sea's fresh water. Its extensive marshes and tidal flats, along with those of other Salish Sea rivers, are true ecological jewels of the Salish Sea. Superimposed on the rich geography and ecology of the Salish Sea is us. For thousands of years, abundant marine and shoreline life has attracted humans to make the Salish Sea their home. The Coast Salish peoples have built large, successful communities everywhere around these shores. More recently, we've made some corners of the Salish Sea into urban landscapes. Today, the shores and nearby areas of the Salish Sea are home to 9 million people. principally in the major urban areas of Seattle, Washington, and Vancouver, British Columbia, as well as in a host of smaller cities, towns, and rural areas. This big population is growing fast, and so is industry, ship traffic, shoreline development, and recreational use. The wild parts of the Salish Sea are being squeezed into smaller and smaller spaces by our expanding human footprint. We all need to champion the health of the Salish Sea, reducing our collective impacts on land, sea, and air, managing the pollution from cities, industry, and ships, and protecting the ecological riches of this amazing place. The extraordinary Salish Sea. We who live around its shores are blessed with a great gift, its wild beauty, its rich wild living. So worth getting to know better, so worth caring for, and so worth standing up for.